I can have someone as uneducated and lowly like you fired anytime I want. Keep that in mind. At the headquarters, Emily, who bosses around a place as the department head, hurled such harsh threats at me. The next day, President Johnson visited my department on an internal inspection. First and foremost, Emily greeted President Johnson with an almost servile eagerness. I felt like throwing up at the sight of Emily's flirty demeanor, so different from the tyrannical and arrogant face she shows to us subordinates. But then, the next moment, President Johnson spotted me and walked over to say something. The words he greeted me with and then the words that continued were utterly unexpected. Emily's eyes widened in shock and her face turned deathly pale in an instant. I am Michael Sanders. At 28, I'm still quite a novice. This is a lesson I've learned through the experiences of my youth, which I'd like to share with you. I was born as an only child. My father ran his own company, and my mother was raised like a princess. In my early years, we were fairly well off. My father was too busy with his business to play with me, but I remember him being very affectionate when he was around. My mother, a full-time homemaker, was gentle and kind, and I was raised in a calm and peaceful atmosphere. In my faint childhood memories, we had a maid. The maid and my mother often took me to the local zoo or amusement park. These peaceful and elegant days continued until I started kindergarten. But one day during my kindergarten years, the company car carrying my father was involved in a head-on collision with a large truck. The driver died instantly, and my father, who was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, was barely hanging on to life. After the emergency treatment, my father somehow managed to cling to life, but remained in a critical condition, teetering on the edge between life and death for a long time. Over a month passed before his condition finally stabilized. However, he ended up almost completely bedridden and paralyzed on one side of his body. Inevitably, my father could no longer work and was forced into retirement. My father had built his company from scratch and was expanding it rapidly, so the regrets he must have felt at that moment are beyond comprehension. From then on, my father took on a tedious rehabilitation process, trying to improve his condition as much as possible. At home, my father needed assistance from my mother and hired helpers for everything, which must have been hard for him, but he never complained or showed weakness. Our family's lifestyle was now sustained by my father's savings and some assets. My mother, raised as a princess and physically frail, couldn't work outside while taking care of my father, so we had to manage with what we had. Don't worry, we have enough savings and assets to keep us going for a while. Don't worry about money. My father reassured us, struggling to articulate his words. In this situation, I started elementary school and eventually became a middle schooler. Being fast on my feet, I excelled as a sprinter on the track team in middle school. With grades in the top 10 of my class, I went on to a public high school with the highest academic standards in our district. However, I had given up on the idea of going to college by the time I was in my first year of high school. I knew our family's finances, which had been maintained by depleting savings and assets since my elementary school days, were becoming strained. While we had enough for our daily lives, my father's medical expenses took a significant toll each year, and we needed to prioritize those funds. I didn't want to burden my family further by going to college, so I told them, I don't want to go to college, I'm tired of studying, even though it was a lie. I knew that if I didn't say something like that, my parents would feel guilty for not being able to send their son to college. As a high school student, I didn't join any clubs. Instead, I worked part-time jobs to earn my allowance and cover school expenses. I wanted to lessen the burden on my family's finances. By my senior year, while everyone else in my honors class was preparing for college entrance exams, I was the only one starting to job search. Since going to college was the norm for everyone, my teachers weren't very helpful with my job hunt, They did write the recommendation letters I asked for, but for the most part I had to manage all the inquiries and arrangements with companies on my own. As a result, I received a job offer from a branch of a certain company I had hoped to join for specific reasons. Upon graduating from high school, I began working at this company as a member of the workforce. The company, though a branch of a certain corporation, was essentially treated like a subsidiary, positioned at the bottom of the group's hierarchy. During the job hunt, I had wanted to apply to the headquarters, but since the requirements stated educational background, college degree or higher, the only position available to me was at this branch. However, the branch where I was hired had good interpersonal relationships, and there was no enforced overtime work or other negative aspects, so I quickly grew to like my workplace. My job initially focused on route sales, but as I gained experience in my second and third years, I had more freedom to develop original products and explore new sales channels. As I continued to work, I found my job increasingly enjoyable and felt motivated. However, as I entered my fourth year at the company, an element began to disrupt a good atmosphere. An employee from the headquarters started to come to our branch for inspection, acting like an auditor. Although the inspection itself wasn't a bad thing, the attitude of this employee from the headquarters was horrendous, to say the least. This employee, Emily, came to our branch regularly for inspections. She was in her mid to late 20s, a few years older than me. Emily was tall, with a model-like figure, stunningly beautiful, and an elite graduate from a top university. Originally working for a foreign consulting firm right after graduating from college, Emily was headhunted to work at our headquarters, known for her sharp and capable work ethic. Despite her actress-level beauty, Emily had a cold, strong-willed personality with an incredibly high pride. It's like God has made winners like me, blessed with both brains and beauty, and losers like you who don't have anything, Emily often said. Emily had a strong sense of superiority as an elite and habitually looked down on employees of our branch, which she considered the bottom of the group, as if we were mere insects. Especially after learning that I only had a high school diploma, she openly mocked me. "So, Michael, you're just a lowly high school graduate. I saw your resume. You went to a fairly decent public high school with a high deviation score. You must have been a real failure there." She ridiculed me mercilessly. Each time Emily insulted or slandered me, I felt deeply hurt inside, but I endured it. After all, Emily was sent from the headquarters. If I reacted to Emily's provocations and responded angrily, it could lead to repercussions for our company as a subsidiary. Knowing this, we employees had no choice but to endure Emily's mean-spirited harassment. Then, one day, I was headed to work early in the morning, and on my way to the station, I encountered something unexpected. An elderly woman had collapsed on the side of the road. Perhaps due to the morning rush or general apathy, no one stopped to help the fallen elderly woman. I immediately rushed to her side and asked, "Are you okay? What happened?" The elderly woman had been lying on the ground in pain with her eyes closed, and she opened her eyes in response to my voice and weakly replied, "Oh, I suddenly felt dizzy and must have passed out on the street." After helping the elderly woman to her feet, she managed to stand up. Still concerned, I asked the elderly woman, "Would you like to go to the hospital?" Then she said, "No, let me contact my family first." So I used her phone to call her family and explained the situation. While waiting with the elderly woman, a taxi arrived carrying a middle-aged woman claiming to be her family member. I was relieved and handed the elderly woman over to her family. Checking the time, I realized I was significantly late. Totally late. I contacted my company to explain the situation and let them know I would be late, then headed back to the station. Upon arriving at work about 2 hours late, I was met by Emily, who had come from the headquarters. "Hey, Mr. Low-educated and good-for-nothing guy. What time do you think it is? If you're going to be useless, at least be punctual. Trash will always be trash." Emily scolded me without even asking for an explanation. After that, Emily continued to torment me with her nasty remarks, but I gritted my teeth and endured it. I just have to endure. This woman is trying to provoke me on purpose to bring down this department. I thought to myself, continuing my work patiently. That afternoon, while still bearing the brunt of my hardships, I received a phone call from an unexpected person. It was a call I could never have anticipated. Months passed, and a new fiscal year began. I was transferred from the branch I had worked at since joining the company. I had been reassigned to work at the headquarters. As I made my rounds greeting people in the department I was assigned to at the headquarters, I happened to witness a scene. Emily was scolding her subordinates with an arrogant attitude. Emily's title was the office manager of this office floor, which included the department I was assigned to. I discreetly observed her reprimanding her subordinates and later on interviewed them and others around the office after she left. It turned out that Emily was notorious at the headquarters for her arrogant attitude towards her subordinates and her relentless pursuit of even the smallest mistakes, resulting in a very poor reputation. Most of her subordinates were stressed and harbored discontent. I returned to my assigned department and was working when Emily, who had business with the section chief, came in and spotted me. "Why is a useless employee from a bottom-tier branch here at the headquarters?" she bluntly asked. I respectfully reiterated my reason for being at the headquarters to Emily. "I've been transferred here starting this month, as per the headquarters orders." Emily reacted with exaggerated disbelief, saying, "You're just a high school graduate, right? You're supposed to have a college degree to work at the headquarters. How did someone like you get transferred here? Unbelievable," and reluctantly accepted the fact. However, things got worse from there. From that day on, Emily started treating me as if I were one of her subordinates. She would demeaningly call me, "Hey, undereducated guy," or "Mr. High School Diploma," and started dumping menial tasks on me, like making coffee or filing documents. At times, she even ordered me to clean the women's restroom. It was a clear act of harassment. Eventually, Emily started assigning me chores even during my lunch breaks. I refused, which seemed to hurt her pride, and she left with a harsh parting shot. "I can have someone as uneducated and lowly like you fired anytime I want. Keep that in mind." Watching her walk away, I muttered to myself, it might be time to make a move, and made a call to someone. The next day, President Johnson of the company, claiming to be on an inspection tour, came to the floor where my department was located. Emily was the first to obsequiously greet him. Her usual domineering attitude replaced with an insincere charm that almost made me nauseous. "She's like a person with a double personality," I thought, disgusted by her two-faced behavior. Emily tried to curry favor with Mr. Johnson. "Yesterday, I visited your office, but it seemed you were on a call and we couldn't speak. I've noticed you are often giving work instructions or engaging in negotiations over the phone recently, and I truly admire your dedication to work. I hope to emulate that as well." Despite her fawning over Mr. Johnson, he soon spotted me and approached to greet me warmly. "Mr. Michael Sanders, the new president. We've spoken on the phone several times, but this is our first face-to-face meeting. Welcome to the headquarters." I responded, "Thank you. I've had the chance to observe everyone's hard work here since yesterday. I look forward to working with all of you." Upon hearing our exchange, Emily's face turned ashen. "New president, what do you mean? This high school graduate?" she stammered in disbelief. Mr. Johnson frowned at her interjection and sternly reprimanded her. "Emily, watch your language." He then proceeded to explain to a stunned Emily the surprising truths. This company was originally founded by my father. Due to a traffic accident that left him severely disabled, Mr. Johnson took over his duties. I was placed in a branch for training to assess my abilities as the founder's son. Mr. Johnson calmly explained these surprising truths, which were news to everyone except me. Emily, looking more shocked than anyone, was still not convinced by my sudden appointment as the new president and protested, "Even if that's the case, doesn't it seem odd? This is a large corporation with many branches and subsidiaries. Just because he's the founder's son, handing over the presidency to someone who hasn't even graduated from college is absurd." "Enough, Emily. Your discriminatory insults could constitute slander. Show some respect." Mr. Johnson scolded her firmly. He then calmly added more details. He explained that he had made the decision considering my character. The elderly lady I helped during my commute while at the branch was actually Mr. Johnson's mother, and upon learning this fact, he reached out to my father. Then, the details of how my character and capabilities were reevaluated, leading to the offer of the presidency, were thoroughly explained to both Emily and the other employees. According to Mr. Johnson, the board of directors and executive committee had already unanimously approved my appointment as the new president, with only the formal announcement at the shareholders' meeting remaining. Hearing this, Emily stood frozen in shock, while the rest of the employees erupted into applause. They congratulated me, saying, "Congratulations on your new appointment as president, and we're looking forward to working with you, President Sanders." I thanked Mr. Johnson and the employees, then said, "Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to working with all of you as well." Then I turned to Emily with a serious expression. Unable to rebut, I warned Emily, "I've compiled all the verbal abuse and harassment you've inflicted on your subordinates. Be aware that Mr. Johnson has been informed of your unacceptable behavior, so prepare yourself." Mr. Johnson added, "Emily, a special investigation team is currently examining your deplorable treatment of subordinates. You can expect severe disciplinary action to follow." Upon hearing that, Emily let out a loud "ah" as she looked up at the ceiling, then collapsed to the floor from her knees. Several weeks later, the punishment for Emily following the investigation report was announced. She was dismissed from her position as a disciplinary action. The investigation team detailed Emily's harassment of her subordinates and branch employees, which was found to be grossly abnormal and constituted severe violations of human rights. Furthermore, it was discovered that several individuals had resigned due to mental and physical health issues stemming from the harassment. Some of them are still unable to reintegrate into society due to the deep psychological scars inflicted by Emily. Emily had not physically assaulted anyone, but in terms of inflicting significant psychological harm, she was undeniably a criminal. Although Emily was dismissed and left the company, that was not the end. Victims of her cruel harassment, who had been forced to resign, filed lawsuits against Emily personally, demanding compensation for their suffering. As one person took legal action, other victims who had previously suffered in silence began to speak out, leading to multiple lawsuits against Emily and dragging her into a quagmire. This news eventually became a rumor and reached Emily's parents. They denounced her as a disgrace to the family and ultimately disowned her. Dismissed and with no income, Emily quickly depleted her savings and assets from her days as an elite employee and fell into debt due to legal and compensation expenses. Although she attempted to find employment, her reputation, tarnished by the lawsuits related to her malicious harassment, preceded her, and she was rejected from elite positions. While there were some opportunities for lower-level positions or in small companies, her unyielding elite mentality and excessive pride led to repeated rejections during interviews. Once living in a luxurious high-rise condo, Emily was eventually forced to move to a cheap, run-down apartment. Now, she lives in fear of debt collectors' knocks and threats, confined to her dilapidated apartment. Hearing this through the grapevine, I realized the truth of karma. Emily's current situation is dire, but I can't find it in me to feel sorry for her. After all, she inflicted far greater pain, humiliation, and bitterness on many vulnerable people. For the rest of her life, the only path left for her is to deeply reflect and live with the consequences of her actions. Each time I reflect on Emily's downfall, I use it as a moment to introspect and evaluate myself. Am I being harsh to anyone? Am I using words or actions that could hurt someone? Am I doing anything that could demotivate our employees? These questions serve as my motivation to always check that the environment at our organization allows everyone to work comfortably. Taking Emily's actions as a cautionary tale, I continue to strive for improvements in our company's environment, guided by the principle, one must not judge others based on their background, education, or personal likes and dislikes. Just quit the chatter and get those documents sorted on my desk. You're out of here. Not a single word of mine was heard. Only a barrage of insults filled the air. Seeing me speechless, Tyler, the director, leaned back in his chair with a smug look of victory. Well, now I've got to clean up your mess. Hurry up and bring me all the paperwork you've dealt with so far. An unjust dismissal notice, and I'm not even allowed to hand over important client accounts. Watching Tyler lounging in his chair smugly, I felt as if the taut string inside me had suddenly snapped. Understood. I'll gather the documents and then I'll leave. We'll handle the minor details. Just hand over the documents and pack up your stuff quickly. You're in the way of work. Tyler seemed eager to get rid of me as soon as possible. Fine, I'll leave right away. Enjoy the hardships I've endured all these years to the fullest. My name is Mike. I work in the sales department of a major staffing agency. After graduating from high school, I joined this company right away. I started my career as a contract employee and, recognized for my achievements, I passed the evaluation to become a full-time employee. Even as a full-time employee, I continued to work diligently, eventually climbing up to the position of manager. Cherish connections with people is my motto, and I spend my days developing my team members, still making sales calls with them whenever I have time. I want them to see and learn from the experience I've accumulated. All the client companies I currently handle are ones with which I have long-standing relationships. They are all companies I secured contracts with from scratch, and thanks to the trust we've built over time, we still sign regular contracts. There's the grumpy President Harrison, but when the 10th-year contract was concluded, he showed his generous side, saying, "After all, it's all about people." Lately, I've been making sales calls mostly with the newbie, Alex. He's still inexperienced, so his work as a salesperson requires close attention, but he's compassionate and has a good manner. I'm excited to see him grow, potentially becoming a leading figure in the sales department. One day, I planned a long vacation for my 10th wedding anniversary to go on an overseas trip with my wife. I've been away from home often due to business entertainments, causing my wife a lot of trouble. The members of the sales department have grown to the point where they can handle their work even in my absence for a few weeks. So, I decided to take a long vacation with peace of mind. Brandon, the director, readily agreed, and I devoted myself to work while preparing so that my subordinates wouldn't be inconvenienced during my vacation. Life-changing encounters come unexpectedly. It happened the day before my long-awaited vacation. Brandon's chronic illness worsened, leading to his hospitalization with no clear prognosis for discharge. Tyler Campbell was brought in from another department as the acting director in his place. Informed about the hospitalization by Bill, the executive officer, we started working with Tyler from that day. I'm Tyler, transferred from the administration department. I felt a bit uneasy about his lethargic attitude, but I figured it was just a tension of being in a new department, so I didn't dwell on it too much. For anything related to sales, consult Mike, the manager here. He's our ace, so he'll surely teach you a lot. When I was patted on the shoulder and told I'm counting on you by Bill, I felt my spine straighten. With the change in director, the workplace atmosphere was bound to undergo a significant transformation. I wanted to make sure not to stress my subordinates too much. Tyler, nice to meet you. I'm Mike. Looking forward to working together. I reached out for a handshake, but Tyler did not uncross his arms. Yeah, I don't care if you're the sales ace or whatever, but I can't stand incompetent employees or inefficient work. Just by looking at your subordinates, it's clear what kind of ace you are. Try to put even a single scratch on my title as director, and you'll find yourself out of here. I was at a loss for words at Tyler's provocative greeting. The possibility of what might happen next made my chest tighten. Everyone in the sales department works hard, sweating every day and doing their best. My sales team is also learning the job while making rounds with me. Everyone here is a respectable employee who takes responsibility for their work, so don't worry. I was infuriated to have my subordinates called incompetent, so I replied with a bit of sarcasm. What a ridiculous answer. Hard work is the same as incompetence that doesn't yield results. Well, it'll be clear soon enough just by observing the subordinates. Though I was itching to retort to his arrogant remarks, I remembered something crucial. I was about to take a long vacation and would be away for a while. Tyler, I apologize for the inconvenience so soon after your arrival to this department. I will be on paid leave starting tomorrow. Tyler frowned for a moment, then relaxed his mouth as if he had thought of something. I have already negotiated with the clients regarding the projects during my vacation, and the subsequent negotiations have been scheduled for after my return. In case of an emergency, I have asked Alex to contact me and handle it. Taking paid leave at a time like this must be nice to be the ace. Well, fine. I'll take a good look at how your subordinates work in the meantime. If anything goes wrong, you'll take responsibility, right? Tyler provocatively challenged me with a scheming look. It was regrettable to leave my subordinates behind, but canceling my leave now would only inconvenience them and my wife. I decided to trust my subordinates. Yes, I will take full responsibility for anything that happens. Tyler smiled smugly and sank deep into his chair. After everyone had left, I considered the risks that might occur during my absence and created a manual document so that my subordinates could handle them, leaving a copy on each of their desks. 2 weeks later, I safely returned from my overseas trip and my long vacation ended. I had told Alex to contact me immediately if anything happened, but the lack of any news during the 2 weeks made me anxious. And then, on my first day back at work, arriving earlier than usual, I found Alex looking haggard with dark circles under his eyes. Alex, what happened to you, looking so worn out? Mike, you're back today, right? Actually, I think I made a mistake with a quotation. I'm currently rushing to correct it. Tyler said I'd be fired if I don't redo the quotation before he arrives. My worst fears had come true. But even if Alex made a mistake with the quotation, the final review and decision should have been Tyler's responsibility. Without Tyler's approval, the quotation wouldn't have been sent to the client. Did you show that quotation to Tyler? The final decision is up to him, so it shouldn't be your responsibility. What do you mean? Tyler said that since it's a regular client, his final review wasn't necessary, and he sent me out on the sales call without it. Looking at the quotation, I felt a pang of anxiety. This was for a client company with a difficult President Harrison. He is strict about time and manners and would never forgive such a simple mistake. I had always taken great care to ensure not a single error from the beginning of our contract. Final reviews are mandatory. Didn't I write it in red in the manual I left on everyone's desk? Manual? What manual? It turned out that no one knew about the manual I had prepared and left on each desk the day before my vacation. I immediately had a hunch. Could Tyler have disposed of the manual? While I was pondering this, Tyler arrived at work. "Oh, finally back. We had a tough time while you were gone. Especially your promising newcomer messed things up big time." Tyler started complaining about the subordinates the moment he saw me, so I kept silent. After he finished his litany of complaints, I finally spoke up. "Tyler, to prevent my subordinates from struggling, I left a manual on everyone's desk. It even mentions that your final review is mandatory. Weren't you aware of it?" "Manual? What's that?" The one who neglected the final review was Alex. He went on the sales call without showing it to me, causing this mess. Thanks to him, I had to apologize. Tyler's voice grew increasingly agitated. Looking at Alex's face, he was pale, staring at Tyler in disbelief. I was immediately convinced that Alex wouldn't make such a simple mistake. I can hardly believe that Alex would take a quotation to a client without the final review. He said he tried to get confirmation from you but was told it wasn't necessary. Don't you remember that? What? You're saying it's my confirmation mistake that led to the wrong quotation being sent to the client? That's preposterous. Incompetents only know how to blame others. How are you the sales ace if you can't even prevent such a trivial mistake? Tyler's tirades intensified. There's no proof I placed the manuals on everyone's desks, nor evidence to clear Alex's false accusation. Arguing further seemed futile. I believe what Alex says. However, there's no evidence that you are covering anything up. The whereabouts of the manuals I placed on the desks are also unknown. Please wait until I find the evidence. I showered him with words akin to a declaration of war and returned to work. You've made a fool of me time and again. You'll regret going against me. With that, Tyler disappeared somewhere. While catching up on accumulated work, I pondered how to address the false accusation regarding the quotation. Alex kept apologizing to me, looking remorseful. If you believe you did the right thing, stand tall. It's okay, I believe in you. For now, let's take the correct quotation and apologize to the client. I took Alex with me to apologize to the client concerning the quotation. Having informed them in advance about my long vacation and having made several visits with Alex, we managed to get their understanding for this incident. Mr. Harrison said as we were leaving, I judge anyone who makes even a single small mistake as someone who lacks respect for others. It's a phrase he often repeated to me. With my shoulders slumped and gaze lowered, Mr. Harrison continued to speak to me. But Mike, you hadn't made a single mistake in these 10 years, so I decided to overlook it this time. With those parting words, he returned to his office. It wasn't a contract termination, thankfully. Thank you so much, Mike. Alex's relief and trembling voice painfully convey his emotions. It's been a good experience. Let's make sure to cover for each other so this doesn't happen again. I hope we can somehow maintain a good relationship with Tyler. I patted Alex on the shoulder, offering words of consolation. However, upon returning to the company, the situation had worsened. Summoned by Tyler, I was given a shocking notification. What do you mean? That means Alex is fired. I don't need incompetent employees who don't admit their faults and blame me instead. Tyler's selfish reasoning infuriated me further. That's an unfair dismissal. I'll talk to the higher-ups about this. As I tried to walk away, Tyler said, I've already spoken to my father. You can't claim ignorance. My father is Vice President, Mr. Campbell. You and the incompetent newbie have crossed me. Since you seem to be favored as the ace, I spared you and fired the newbie instead, he said, revealing Alex's dismissal notice. Tyler's barbaric actions sent shivers down my spine. I finally realized that he applies pressure through power to anyone who opposes him. Please retract Alex's dismissal. I'll ensure nothing tarnishes Tyler's reputation from now on. Just please retract the dismissal." I pleaded desperately with Tyler. My pride was nothing compared to unjustly fired Alex. "Don't think your groveling will calm my anger. Incompetent tastes. I've always hated pretentious hypocrites like you, claiming to be well-liked. Don't make me laugh. You're just a low-educated incompetent trying to please everyone." That's when I finally understood. Tyler disliked me personally. As long as I remained in this department, the harassment towards me would never stop. And it would inevitably affect my subordinates too. "Tyler, do you remember the promise you made on the day you were transferred here? I promised to take responsibility for my subordinates." His tone changed abruptly from the tirades he had been hurling at me. "What, you're saying you'll resign instead? If it means Alex won't be fired, I'll take responsibility." My words seemed to irk Tyler even more as he raised his voice. "So, it's your fault for leaving your incompetent subordinates while you were off. You're taking full responsibility, right? We don't need incompetence and low education in our company. You got your wish. You're fired." I accepted the dismissal notice, fully prepared for everything. After briefly greeting my subordinates and attempting to at least hand over the client accounts, "Just stop the chatter and get those documents sorted on my desk. You've got no place in this company anymore," Tyler's tirades echoed without listening to a word I said. Seeing my speechless figure, Tyler leaned back in his chair with a satisfied look as if he had won. "Well, now I've got to clean up your mess. Bring me all the paperwork you've handled so far." An unfair dismissal notice, and I wasn't even allowed to hand over important client accounts. Watching Tyler smugly leaning back in his chair, I felt as if a tightly wound string inside me had snapped. "Understood. I'll gather the documents and leave. We'll handle the minor stuff. Just hand over the documents and quickly pack up your things. You are getting in the way of work." It seemed Tyler was eager to get rid of me as soon as possible. "Fine, I'll leave right now. Let him fully experience the hardships I've endured." A few days after being handed the dismissal notice, the situation took a sudden turn. While I was resting at home, I received a call from Alex. "Hey, Alex, how are you doing? Is something wrong?" The unusual atmosphere was palpable even through the phone. "Mike, it's terrible. The clients you've been regularly maintaining contracts with are one after another filing for cancellations." My eyes widened. The contracts I had secured with those clients were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each. What, if they do that, the company's profits will be almost. Yes, as far as we know now, nearly $1 million in contracts are being canceled. There aren't many clients with whom we have regular contracts. Moreover, in a staffing agency, once clients no longer need personnel, we're no longer of use to them. To renew annual contracts, we had to constantly present how we could contribute to their profits and work beyond the typical scope of a staffing agency to improve their business alongside them. We transitioned from merely sending personnel to becoming partners, hand in hand. It was crucial to regularly visit the clients, understand their current needs, how we could increase their profits, and empathize with the challenges faced by the president and the company. As the sales manager, I valued this above all and made it a point to visit the clients myself. Now, it was all falling apart. There was only one other thing that came to mind. With that thought, I headed straight to the office. Upon entering the floor, I saw the staff bustling about, busy with phone calls. When I looked for Tyler, he was deeply slouched in his chair, seemingly lost in thought. He probably couldn't find any solution. "Tyler, what's going on here?" He looked up in surprise as he heard my voice. "Hey, Mike, why are you here? You're supposed to be fired. Who let this guy in?" Tyler's shout echoed throughout the office. The staff looked around in fear. I informed him, "If things continue this way, all contracts will be terminated. leading to significant losses for the company. We need Mike's help. Alex raised his voice to Tyler like I'd never heard before. What an outrageous act. He's no longer a manager. We don't need help from someone who's been fired from the company. That's what incompetents think. First, tell me what happened. I heard all the clients filing for cancellations are the ones I had regular contracts with. I have a responsibility here. Tyler seemed taken aback by my words. That's right. Yes, it's all because I had to clean up your mess that we're in this situation. If you had completed your work properly before leaving, none of this would have happened. Your departure has caused a huge loss to the company's profits. I was astounded by Tyler's absurd excuses. Tyler, blaming others is something incompetents do, right? That phrase fits you perfectly now. Hearing my words, Tyler's face turned red, and he murmured to himself while sinking back into his chair. So, Alex, can you explain the situation? While Tyler was disheartened, I focused on understanding the situation. According to Alex, the lack of detailed handover from me led to miscommunications with the clients. Negotiations weren't as smooth as before, resulting in a barrage of criticisms from them. Suddenly, the clients were dealing with unfamiliar staff members without any explanation, and to make matters worse, Tyler later visited them, nonchalantly proposing increases in contract fees. Understandably, the clients were furious about the sudden talk of raising fees. Despite the backlash, Tyler continued to visit clients, only to propose increases in contract fees. And today, just before the contracts were up for renewal, there was a flood of cancellations. Tyler, you might not have known, but many of the presidents of my clients are difficult people, especially when it comes to delicate matters like money. You need a strong relationship of trust. If it were me, I'd be trembling. As I reflected, the hard work I had put in over the years flashed before my eyes. That's not my concern. Sure, I may be less educated and less capable in your eyes, but in exchange, I've always valued connections with people more than anything. It's by respecting these relationships that I've managed to generate profits that now shape the foundations of our company. Don't you dare act all high and mighty. This is my company. Don't you oppose me. Tyler's voice grew even harsher. At that moment, the phone rang. The internal phone on Tyler's desk started ringing. Tyler's body trembled slightly as he hesitantly picked up the phone. This is Tyler. Yes, right now, yes. Tyler's voice became fainter and fainter. Surely, the top management had been informed of the serious situation. Such a significant loss would obviously impact the company's management. Mike, too, yes, he's here. As expected, my name was mentioned. Most of the clients in question were mine, so it was inevitable. And from the way Tyler spoke, could it be he kept my dismissal a secret? Hey, Mike, there's an emergency executive meeting. Come with me. Tyler shouted as if venting his anger at me. Quietly following Tyler, I prepared myself for the upcoming Q&A session in the meeting. The emergency meeting took place in a large conference room. Tyler and I took a moment before opening the door. Bill and even our CEO, Mr. Richardson, were in attendance. Tyler, we'd like you to explain the circumstances leading to this situation. Tyler's expression changed, and he began to speak in a feeble voice. While Mike was on extended leave, a problem arose with a quotation from a new employee, and when I reported it to Mike, he accused me of being responsible. I was stunned by Tyler's false confession. Mike then went absent without leave. In the meantime, I was advancing negotiations with his clients, but without any handover from him. The trust from our clients crumbled. Tyler, that's because you. I couldn't hold back and interrupted. I apologize for the inconvenience caused by my inadequate guidance. Tyler apologized, cutting off any further discussion. I was utterly appalled by Tyler's responses, all aimed at self-preservation until the very end. I see, Mike, is this true? Hearing Bill's question, Tyler glared at me. Even if Tyler was the son of Vice President, Mr. Campbell, I had already been dismissed. There was no reason for me to cover for him now. No, not a single thing he said is true. I then recounted everything, from Tyler's tyrannical behavior and unfair dismissal to his barbaric negotiations. Vice President, Mr. Campbell, stood up in disbelief at such selfish behavior. After finishing, I added one last thing. Therefore, I am no longer a manager here. I am a former employee who was unjustly dismissed. The executives began voicing their opinions amidst the conflicting accounts. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. "Excuse me," a familiar voice said as Alex entered. "I apologize for interrupting the meeting. I am Alex from the sales department. I have brought evidence to prove Mike's innocence." He then took out a recorder. Alex had been recording Tyler's actions and words during my absence. When I returned to work after my days off, during the rough negotiations, and even in today's interactions, everything was recorded. "Alex, how dare you do this? That's not my voice. It's different." But it was clearly Tyler's voice, unmistakable to anyone who heard it. After the recording was played, Vice President, Mr. Campbell, Tyler's father, stood up immediately. "I sincerely apologize for letting my foolish son conduct himself so poorly. He will be duly punished for his actions." He apologized profusely, not even glancing at Tyler. "What's going on? What's happening? Gaining up on me like this?" Tyler was slumped on the floor, crying out. In the eerie silence, there was another knock on the door. When Alex opened the door, there stood President Harrison, who was known for being hard to please and with whom we had a long-standing contract. "Why are you here?" Then, Vice President, Mr. Campbell, approached the door and spoke up. "He's a friend of mine. He was worried about Mike and contacted me today." Turns out, they were classmates. Given President Harrison's temperament, it had always been a secret that he was under contract with the staffing agency of Vice President, Mr. Campbell, but my sudden disappearance had concerned him, prompting him to reach out. "I sincerely apologize for my abrupt change in handling and my disrespectful behavior." Touched by President Harrison's concern despite his challenging personality, I apologized through tears for the rude negotiations. He mentioned that if I would return as a responsible person, he would renew the contract. Apparently, he had just arrived when Alex came in and had overheard everything. Knowing I had been unfairly dismissed, he decided to re-contract with us. "Would you come back as our star player?" I nodded eagerly. With Tyler speechless, applause and cheers erupted from everyone. Then, I shook hands with Alex, expressing my gratitude for his brave disclosure. Afterward, I visited each client who had sent a contract termination notice to apologize with a gift. I explained the company's recent scandal and secured recontracting under the condition that I would return as their representative. Some companies refuse contract renewals due to scandals, but most have agreed to re-sign, each of them saying the same thing. They all said, "We want to entrust it to you because it's you, Mike." I might be considered low-educated and incompetent for only having a high school diploma. But as President Harrison said, the future of a company is built on relationships. Thanks to Tyler, I've come to want to spread this belief even more. As for Tyler, he was stripped of his position and suspended indefinitely. Vice President, Mr. Campbell, who did not overlook Tyler's selfish and tyrannical behavior, said he wouldn't rehire him as a full-time employee even if he wished to return. With his punishment, Tyler faces a thorny path to social reintegration. But perhaps, learning from this and experiencing the warmth of those who reach out, his life might brighten a bit. Despite being seen as incompetent and low-educated, I've managed to climb this far. Time has passed since that day, and Alex, once a newbie, is rapidly advancing as the next ace in sales. As for me, I remained a manager for a while but was promoted to director after repeated recommendations from the executives. Although I feel a bit shy being called a director, my work style hasn't changed. Even with the new title, I continue to take newcomers and subordinates to clients, discussing the future of the company with challenging presidents even today.